My family just won the lottery. My mother-in-law called us all together with a grave expression to divide the spoils. 1 million for our new house, 1 million for my youngest son, and 1 million for our retirement. As for you, she threw a divorce agreement right at my face. Get the hell out of my house. You're not getting a single cent. I didn't even argue. I scrambled to sign my name as fast as I could. These idiots had no idea. I was the one who won $60 million. A massive fortune, and it was all mine. The news of the lottery win had set the family group chat on fire. A few days ago, a psychic told my in-laws they were about to come into some unexpected cash. My mother-in-law and father-in-law went out and bought tickets immediately. Together, they ended up winning about $3 million. I was thrilled. I called my husband Leo, telling him we could finally afford that house we wanted. I didn't expect him to pour a bucket of ice water over my head. Leo sounded cold and distant. That's my parents' money, Ren. You don't get a say in how it's spent. I was stunned. We were family, weren't we? I had bought tickets too. Why was I being excluded? Confused, I called my mother-in-law. Her tone was exactly like her son's. You're already greedy for our estate before we've even cashed the check? Don't forget, I have a younger son to look after. She continued with a sneer. Remember when I asked you to let Liam use your spare apartment as a wedding house and you said no? Guess the tables have turned. I froze. Okay, mystery solved. They had no idea that my ticket was the real winner, and for a much larger amount. 3 million was enough to make them act like they owned the world. I had originally planned to use my winnings to upgrade Leo's life. Now, to hell with that. They were treating me like an outsider and a gold digger. To be safe, I drove home to grab my ticket before anyone found it. As I pulled into the underground garage, I heard a man's voice near the elevator. It was Leo's brother, Liam. He was a lazy, unemployed brat. He was bragging into his phone. Don't worry, bro. I'll find that prenup. That bitch thinks everything is community property, but she's dreaming if she thinks she's touching our family's cash. Leo was working a night shift at the hospital, so he must have sent Liam to break into our place. They probably wanted to burn the agreement. Honestly, they were doing me a favor. I was young and blinded by love when I signed that stupid paper with Leo, promising to share all assets. After the wedding, I realized he was broke. His only asset was a crumbling family home. He only wanted that agreement because he was eyeing the inheritance my father left me. When my mother-in-law demanded I give my house to Liam for his wedding, I refused point blank. That's when they started hating me. I had banned them from coming over, which put a strain on my marriage. Now they thought they were the rich ones. If they knew I had 60 million, they'd probably kill me. I hid behind a pillar and set my home security cameras to record everything. Once Liam left, I snuck inside and grabbed my ticket from its hiding spot in the kitchen ceiling. The Miller family was united against me. I was the only stranger in their eyes. I knew they wouldn't let me rest tonight, so I planned to stay at my mom's. I decided to let them have their little family meeting. I wanted to see what kind of drama they'd cook up. My mom was vacationing in Europe, so only my younger brother Nate was home. Nate was from my mom's second marriage. We were close. After I told him everything, he almost spat in my face. We have plenty of money and land, Ren. Why are you playing the poor girl in love act with a loser? He shook his head. If it weren't for this lottery, they'd probably take out an insurance policy on you and wait for an accident. Haven't you seen the news? Guys are pushing their wives off cliffs for insurance money. I hung my head, feeling like an idiot. Leo he looks like my first love. I miss him. Nate grabbed my shoulder. You're just deprived of real attention. Go to a club, look at some real men with 8-pack abs, and you'll realize what you're missing. I took his advice. I cashed the ticket in secret, wearing a heavy disguise. Reporters were everywhere, trying to interview me. I blocked my face and didn't say a word. I couldn't risk my mother-in-law seeing me on TV. If they got their hands on this 60 million, I'd be ruined. I escaped the crowd and went home to get dressed up. Then, I went to a high-end nightclub I'd never dared to visit before. It was time to blow some cash. God, being rich felt amazing. Why was I wasting my life with a broke loser like Leo? The good wife persona was officially dead. I looked at the beautiful men around me. The washboard abs. The flirting. This was paradise. I touched a few sets of abs and felt my mood skyrocket. By the time I headed home, I couldn't stop smiling. The 4 members of the Miller family were sitting perfectly straight in my living room. When they saw me walk in, their faces twisted from joy to pure contempt. For 2 years, they had tried to break me down. They constantly tested my obedience, but I always fought back. Leo looked at me, his superior man act in full swing. Ren, where were you last night? I rolled my eyes. Like you were home? Don't judge me for things you do yourself. Leo lost face in front of his parents. It's different. I'm a man. It's normal for me to be out. I laughed coldly. Who knows if you were actually working? For all I know, your pants were hanging off a bedpost somewhere. Enough. My father-in-law barked. Ren, you're a vulgar woman with no manners. You don't deserve to be a miller. I was actually amused. Dad, your wife is way more vulgar. She used to get into fistfights with her own mother-in-law. At least I just use my words. Everyone's eyes landed on the expensive cherries in my mother-in-law's hand. They were greedy. Every time they visited, they raided my fridge for seafood and supplements. They'd replace my high-end food with wilted wild greens and call it an even trade. I hadn't even tasted those cherries yet. My mother-in-law looked embarrassed but kept eating. She couldn't help herself. I'm not as lucky as your mother, she whined. Getting remarried to a rich guy, traveling the world while her daughter pays for everything. I fired back immediately. Liam, did you hear that? Mom thinks you're a failure because she's still eating scraps from her daughter-in-law's table. Liam's face turned green with rage. I had spent the night at a club surrounded by hot guys. I was in no mood for their crap. The four of them exchanged looks. It was time for business. The father-in-law cleared his throat. We won the lottery. We're here to set some boundaries. The mother-in-law smirked at me. We decided. 1 million for us, 1 million for Liam, and 1 million for a new house. As for you, she tossed a divorce paper onto the table. Get out. You get nothing. I didn't mention the prenup. I wanted to see how far they'd go. I faked a shocked expression. We've been married for 3 years. Why now? She looked triumphant. Why? Because you wouldn't give Liam your house or your money. Now that we're rich, you're not touching a dime. I frowned. Something felt off. Why weren't they leaving any money for Leo? Liam was a senior in college and had a girlfriend who demanded a house and car. Giving him $1 million made sense to them. But Leo wasn't in a rush. If they wanted to hide money from me, they could have just kept it until the divorce was final. Then I saw Leo's phone screen flickering on the table. Based on his behavior lately, I had a hunch. He was cheating. And the mistress was probably in a hurry. A while back, I went on a business trip. When I came back, my mom's doggy, which I was watching, and started chasing every young girl it saw. I saw a video online about a dog trainer who said, if your dog acts like that, your man has been taking the dog to see his side piece. It turned out to be true in that video. Now I felt a jolt of realization. That was it. Why hadn't I seen it before? I needed to check the security footage. I needed evidence. Leo sat up straight. Ren, I'm the oldest son. I have to support my brother. Since you won't help, we have to end this. I was speechless. He acted like I was the one holding him back. If he hadn't been so handsome, I would never have married into this poverty-stricken family. Support his brother with my money? The nerve. I couldn't help it. I burst out laughing. What's so funny, Ren? Leo glared at me, disgusted by my lack of ladylike behavior. You should go into business, Leo. I have the perfect industry for you. My words made no sense to him. He looked confused. You should be the world's leading supplier of thick skin. You're a natural. When they built the Great Wall, they should have used your face for the foundation. It's impenetrable. I was calling him shameless to his face. If he didn't get it, that was his problem. But Leo wasn't that stupid. He understood eventually. Let me tell you something, Ren. I will never forgive you for not helping Liam with his wedding. You're not a good wife. What kind of woman works outside all the time and shows her face in public? Have you no shame? I was stunned. I was wrong for working? What law says women can't have careers? The mother-in-law chimed in. Exactly. Just sign the papers. I smiled. These people were insane. And we want half of the inheritance your father left you. Leo added. Wait, what? Their greed knew no bounds. Now they wanted my dead father's money? They were relying on that stupid prenup we signed. I looked at Leo with fake fury. The prenup says our assets are shared, but you can't have that. They were really trying to fleece me. Are you crazy? That's my dad's money. The agreement says our assets are shared, but that money is still in his estate's name. I have to withdraw it for it to be mine. You're dreaming. Leo didn't realize I hadn't moved the money to my personal account yet. He hesitated. Liam leaned in and whispered to Leo, Bro, Bella is in a rush. How much could her dad have left her anyway? Don't let a few bucks ruin the big plan. My ears perked up. Bella. That must be the mistress. And she's in a rush? Is she pregnant? Leo couldn't have a kid though. I'd seen his medical report in my car. His swimmers were barely moving. The parents seemed to agree with Liam. Ren's dad probably didn't leave her much anyway. It's not worth the wait. Just get the divorce done. Leo weighed his options and made a decision. Fine. We won't fight over your little inheritance. You've always been a big spender anyway. If you end up in debt, I don't want to be responsible. Sign it. I yawned lazily. You finished your math, but I haven't finished mine. The Millers froze. They were terrified of me throwing a wrench in their plans. I was definitely going to throw a wrench. My mother-in-law, Brenda, narrowed her beady eyes. What math? What are you trying to pull, Ren? I leaned back against the plush velvet of the sofa. A couch I had bought with my own hard-earned design bonuses, and cross my legs. Simple accounting, I said smoothly. You want me to sign this divorce agreement right now, waive all claims to your supposed $3 million lottery jackpot, and walk away with zero spousal support. Correct? Damn right, Liam sneered, leaning against the hallway arch with his arms crossed. You're an outsider. You haven't contributed a single dime to our family name. Great, I replied, pulling out my tablet from my tote bag. Then let's talk about the apartment we are currently sitting in. Leo's father, Arthur, frowned. What about it? It's our son's marital home. No, Arthur. It's my premarital property, deeded solely in my name, purchased with the trust fund my late father established when I turned 21. I tapped the screen and slid it across the glass coffee table. Furthermore, the last 3 years, Leo has contributed exactly $1,400 toward the utility bills. In total. Meanwhile, I have paid the property taxes, the maintenance fees, the groceries, his car insurance, and the monthly credit card bills for his professional networking dinners. Leo's face flared red. I'm a surgical resident, Ren. My earnings are an investment in our future. In your future, apparently. I shot back with a cold smile. Which now belongs to you and your little side project, Bella. At the mention of the name, Leo visibly flinched. Liam's mouth fell open and Brenda's hand froze midair on its way to grab another handful of imported cherries. Who is Bella? Brenda stammered, casting a frantic glance at her eldest son. Leo quickly recovered, his expression hardening into an ugly scowl. Don't change the subject, Ren. You're making up wild accusations because you're bitter. You want to talk about property? Fine. You keep your little apartment. And I keep my parents' money. But you signed the waiver right now stating that you will never, under any circumstances, seek alimony, post-separation assets, or contest our financial division. I have one condition, I said. You don't get to make conditions. Liam barked. Shut up, Liam. I snapped, my voice dropping an octave into pure ice. If I don't get my condition, I won't sign. And under the state's community property laws, without an uncontested separation, your brother's divorce will drag through the courts for 18 months. In that time, I will freeze every bank account tied to his name, audit his tax returns, and subpoena his hospital records. Leo's eyes darted around in pure panic. 18 months? He couldn't afford 18 days. If Bella was already showing, or if she was demanding a lavish ring and an upfront cash dowry before the baby arrived, an 18-month court battle would destroy his carefully curated reputation. What condition? Leo gritted through his teeth. A mutual, ironclad financial non-disclosure and comprehensive liability release, I stated. Drafted by an independent notary right now via e-signature. It states that neither party owes the other a single cent from any past, present, or future windfalls, inheritances, or lottery earnings acquired during or after the marriage. Total, irrevocable financial decoupling. Brenda let out a loud, theatrical cackle. Is that all? She's terrified we'll sue her for her father's crumbs. Leo, do it. Let the notary send the link right now. She's playing right into our hands, Liam whispered eagerly to his father. Bro, sign it before she changes her mind. Leo pulled out his phone, his fingers practically flying across the screen as he contacted an online legal portal to draft the exact addendum I dictated. Looked like a man who believed he was stealing the crown jewels right out from under the museum guard's nose. 10 minutes later, the digital documents pinged onto our devices. Leo Miller waives all rights to Ren Vance's assets, past, present, and future. Ren Vance waives all rights to Leo Miller's assets, past, present, and future. I signed my name with a crisp, steady tap of my stylus. Leo signed his with a triumphant smirk. You have until noon tomorrow to pack your clothes and clear out of my apartment, I said, standing up and smoothing down my silk blouse. If you or your family leave a single sock behind, the building superintendent has orders to incinerate it. Keep your dusty little flat, Brenda spat, dusting cherry stems off her lap as she stood up. We're buying a 5-bedroom villa in the North Hills with a private pool. You'll be crying yourself to sleep when you see us in the society papers. I'll be sure to frame the clipping, I said sweetly, gesturing toward the front door. Now get out of my home. You smell like cheap ambition. The next morning, the sun broke over the city with a brilliant golden warmth. I met Leo outside the county records office at 9 sharp. He was dressed in a brand new designer suit that still had the plastic tag loop attached to the sleeve, no doubt purchased on credit against his parents' impending lottery payout. Standing 10 yards away behind a row of manicured hedges was a slender brunette wearing oversized sunglasses and a fur-trimmed coat. Bella. She was resting a delicate hand over her completely flat stomach, watching me with a smug, possessive smirk. I didn't give her the satisfaction of a second glance. Inside the clerk's office, the process took less than 15 minutes. Because we had no shared children, no joint real estate, and a freshly notarized mutual waiver of all financial claims, the judge's clerk stamped the dissolution papers. With mechanical efficiency, divorce decree finalized. As we walked out onto the granite steps of the courthouse, Leo stopped and turned to face me. He adjusted his collar, looking down his nose with an air of supreme condescension. "Ren," he said, his voice dripping with false pity, "I know this is hard on you. You spent 3 years trying to hold on to a man who was always destined for greater things. If you ever find yourself struggling to pay your mortgage, you can always reach out. I might throw some consulting work your way through my father's new holding firm." I looked at him, genuinely fascinated by the sheer magnitude of his delusion. "Leo," I said softly, stepping close enough that only he could hear. "Do you remember your annual executive physical from last September?" He blinked, thrown off balance. "What does that have to do with anything?" "The lab report that came in the mail while you were on your medical symposium in Miami," I whispered. "The one from the urology specialist regarding your sperm motility index." The smug color drained from Leo's face in a fraction of a second. His lips parted, but no sound came out. 0.02%, I smiled, patting his lapel gently. The doctor noted that natural conception was a clinical impossibility without microsurgical intervention. "Enjoy your new family, Leo. Make sure you get the nursery painted in a nice bright color." I turned on my heel and walked down the steps toward the curb. Before he could process the bomb I had just dropped, a matte black Mercedes Maybach pulled smoothly up to the red zone. The tinted passenger door swung open, and my younger brother, Nate, leaned out wearing a bespoke Italian suit and aviator shades. "Hop in, big sis," Nate grinned. "Our private wealth manager is waiting at the bank penthouse." I slid into the plush leather interior. As the Maybach purred away from the curb, I caught a glimpse in the side mirror of Leo standing frozen on the courthouse steps, looking frantically between the departing limousine and Bella, who was waving at him from the sidewalk. The game was officially underway. The penthouse office of Crestview Private Wealth overlooked the entire metropolitan skyline. My dedicated private banker, a silver-haired gentleman named Julian, placed a crystal glass of sparkling water in front of me along with a thick, leather-bound portfolio. "Miss Vance, the net lump sum disbursement from the multi-state lottery commission has cleared all federal escrow hurdles," Julian said with a respectful bow. "After maximum statutory tax withholdings, your liquid balance stands at $41,860,000. Nate whistled softly from the lounge chair, twirling an unlit cigar. "Not bad for a $2 scratch and match ticket. How would you like to structure the initial allocation, Miss Vance?" Julian asked, opening the ledger. $10 million into low-risk sovereign municipal bonds," I instructed without hesitation. $15 million into prime commercial real estate trusts in the Central Business District. $5 million allocated directly into Nate's logistics tech venture. Nate sat up straight, his eyes widening. "Ren, you don't have to. You're my brother, and your supply chain software is solid." I cut him off with a grin. "Consider it my angel round. As for the remaining $11 million, keep $5 million fully liquid in my primary checking account. I have some local shopping to do." "Understood," Julian nodded, tapping his tablet. "And regarding your personal residential request?" "The penthouse at the Grandview Horizon," I said. "The top 2 floors. Full panoramic views, private elevator access, and 24-hour biometric security. The previous owner was a European venture capitalist who relocated last month." Julian smiled. "The property is fully furnished by Armani Casa. I can have the deed transferred and the keys in your hand by 4 o'clock this afternoon." "Do it." Leaving the financial tower, Nate and I hopped back into the car. He handed me a sleek, confidential manila folder. "While you were busy liberating yourself from the dead weight, my private investigator did some digging on our dear friends, the Millers," Nate said, a wicked smirk playing on his lips. I opened the folder. Inside were high-resolution photographs, bank statements, and court filings. "Let's start with the Golden Boy's new prize," Nate explained, pointing to a photo of Bella sitting at a cafe with a heavily tattooed man in his late 30s. "Her real name is Annabella Cruz. She's not an heiress, she's not an interior designer, and she certainly isn't an innocent hospital administrator. She's a professional scam artist who targets rising white-collar professionals." "And the baby?" I asked, flipping the page. "Belongs to that gentleman right there, Marcus Rocco Kane, an underground sportsbook operator with over $400,000 in gambling debts." Nate chuckled. "Bella targeted Leo because he was bragging all over the hospital about his family's incoming $3 million lottery fortune. She moved fast, faked an early ultrasound, and convinced Leo to ditch his boring, broke wife so they could secure the bag. And what about my former in-laws? I asked. Oh, it gets better, Nate laughed. Brenda and Arthur took their lottery payout as an annuity option, which means after taxes and split disbursements, they only received an upfront cash advance of about $700,000 from a third-party private lender. But they've already put down non-refundable deposits on a $2 million mansion in North Hills, and Liam just signed a lease-to-own contract on a $200,000 McLaren. I closed the folder, resting my chin on my hand as I looked out at the city below. They're spending money they don't have, based on a fortune they haven't received, to impress a woman who is actively robbing them. Poetic justice doesn't even begin to cover it, Nate grinned. So what's our move? We don't make a move, I replied, a cool, radiant smile spreading across my face. When your enemies are busy marching themselves off a cliff, the polite thing to do is step aside and let them enjoy the view. 2 weeks passed in absolute, luxurious serenity. My new penthouse at the Grandview Horizon was paradise. I spent my mornings sipping freshly brewed Kona coffee on a wraparound balcony 60 stories above the bay, watching the sunrise paint the water in hues of rose and gold. My freelance architectural design firm, now rebranded as Vance Atelier, was backed by $5 million in liquid capital, allowing me to take on only the high-end boutique commercial projects I truly loved. I had blocked Leo, Brenda, Liam, and Arthur on all personal channels. However, I kept a burner phone active to monitor the public social media accounts of the Miller family circus. It was pure comedy. Brenda had rebranded herself on Facebook as a high society matron and philanthropist, posting blurry photos of cheap champagne at provincial country clubs with captions like, "When you have real class, the broke haters naturally fall away. #blessed #old money vibes." Liam's Instagram was an endless reel of him revving the rented McLaren outside suburban shopping malls, wearing counterfeit designer sunglasses and tagging luxury watch brands he couldn't afford to service. And then came the big announcement. Dr. Leo Miller and Miss Annabella Cruz cordially invite you to celebrate their grand engagement and baby shower gala at the St. Regis Grand Ballroom. The date was set for Saturday evening. According to the private investigator's daily brief, Brenda had insisted on booking the most expensive ballroom in the city to show the world that the Millers have arrived. To secure the venue, Leo had taken out a high-interest personal bridge loan, convinced that his father's lottery payout would cover the balance by Monday. What they didn't know was that the St. Regis property had recently been acquired by Crestview Commercial Holdings, a real estate syndicate in which I happened to own a 30% controlling stake. On Friday afternoon, I was browsing the flagship boutique of Boucheron in the luxury shopping district, accompanied by my mother, who had just returned from her Mediterranean cruise. "Darling, look at this sapphire collar," my mom said, holding up a breathtaking piece of high jewelry. "It would match your eyes perfectly for the museum gala next week. Wrap it up." I smiled at the boutique manager, handing over my black titanium Centurion card without looking at the price tag. Just as the manager bowed and walked toward the vault, the front chimes of the boutique shimmied. In walked Brenda, Liam, and a heavily made-up Bella, draped in faux fur and carrying an armful of shopping bags from mid-tier department stores. "I told you, Mom, the real rich folks shop in these private salons," Liam was loudly boasting, his voice echoing off the crystal chandeliers. "When my brother marries Bella, we're going to get an account here. We'll buy watches by the dozen." Brenda preened, her chin tilted so high she looked like a turkey scanning the rafters. "Of course. Nothing but the best for the Miller family now that we're rid of that penniless leech." Brenda's voice abruptly choked off. Her eyes landed squarely on me. For 3 seconds, the boutique was dead silent. Brenda's face twisted from aristocratic arrogance into pure, unadulterated venom. She stomped across the plush carpet, pointing a trembling, manicured finger at my nose. "What are you doing here?" Brenda shrieked. "Security. How did this vagrant get into a private luxury boutique? She's probably here to steal the silver." The store manager, returning with my wrapped sapphire case, froze in utter shock. "Excuse me, ma'am." "Don't talk to her, young man." Brenda barked at the manager, puffing out her chest. "My son is a prominent surgeon, and we just won the state lottery. We are here to purchase a diamond tiara for my new daughter-in-law. This woman is my son's broke ex-wife who was kicked out of our family for greed." Bella stepped forward, running a hand over her silk dress with a smug, patronizing smirk. "Ren, right? Leo told me about you. It must be so hard watching another woman step into the luxury life you couldn't hold on to. If you're looking for a job, my father's estate might need a new scullery maid." Liam laughed loudly, pulling out a battered debit card. "Hey manager, ring up that diamond bracelet in the window. The $5,000 one. Let's show this broke girl what real purchasing power looks like. The store manager looked at Liam's card, then at Brenda's screeching face and, finally at me. His expression shifted into absolute, icy professionalism. Sir, the manager said smoothly to Liam. The piece in the window is $50,000, not $5,000. And secondly, your presence is disturbing. Our primary VIP client. VIP client? Brenda scoffed, pointing at me. Her. She lives in a 2-bedroom hovel. I bet she couldn't even afford the water bottle on your counter. The manager didn't even blink. He turned to me, bowed deeply from the waist and presented the velvet box. Miss Vance, your purchase of the Royal Sapphire Suite, totaling $280,000, has cleared successfully. We have also credited the seasonal dividend from your family's commercial leasehold directly to your private trust. Brenda's jaw dropped so hard her dentures almost slipped. Liam froze, his arm still extended with the cheap plastic card. Bella's eyes bulged, her calculating mind frantically trying to process the numbers. $280,000. In cash. Manager, I said calmly, taking my sunglasses from my handbag. The air in here has become remarkably foul. Could you please have security escort these trespassers out? They're lowering the property value of the entire block. Immediately, Miss Vance, the manager snapped. He raised 2 fingers and 4 burly security guards in dark suits stepped out from the private alcove, surrounding the 3 frozen Millers. Wait, this is a mistake. Brenda shrieked as a guard firmly gripped her elbow, steering her toward the revolving doors. Where did you get that money? Leo. Call Leo. She stole our money. Miss Vance didn't steal anything, my mother added with a cold aristocratic chuckle, adjusting her mink stole. She simply stopped financing your pathetic little lives. Now shoo. The sidewalk is that way. As the security team deposited the screeching, flailing Millers onto the pavement outside, I picked up my velvet box, linked arms with my mother and walked out into the afternoon sun. The appetizer was finished. It was time for the main course. Saturday evening arrived with an ominous, purple-gray thunderstorm rolling across the city skyline. Inside the grand ballroom of the St. Regis, the Miller family was putting on the performance of a lifetime. Over 100 guests, mostly distant relatives from their rural hometown, Leo's junior hospital colleagues, and a smattering of local acquaintances had gathered under the crystal chandeliers. Brenda was parading around in a bright, crimson evening gown that looked like a repurposed theater curtain, showing off a costume jewelry necklace to anyone who made eye contact. Yes, of course, $3 million was just the initial ticket. Brenda was loudly declaring to a group of bewildered doctors' wives. My Leo has brilliant financial instincts. He dumped that barren, broke ex-wife of his and now he's marrying into an old money dynasty. Bella's family owns vineyards in California. At the VIP head table, Leo sat in his rented tuxedo, nursing a glass of scotch. He should have been ecstatic, but a dark, gnawing pit of anxiety had been eating at his stomach for 48 hours. First, his debit card had been declined at the florist that morning. When he called the lottery payout agency, an automated message informed him that the lump sum advance had been frozen due to conflicting tax liens filed against his father's old construction business. Second, he couldn't get Ren's parting words out of his head. 0.02%. He had stared at Bella across the breakfast table that morning. She had demanded a $20,000 cash transfer for her private prenatal care, refusing to provide the name of her obstetrician. When he had asked to see the medical charts, she had thrown a hysterical tantrum, accusing him of not trusting his own unborn child. Leo, babe, look at the cameras. Bella purred, sliding into the seat beside him, reeking of heavy perfume. She shoved a professional photographer toward his face. Make sure you get my ring in the frame. The 3-carat one. The ring on her finger was cubic zirconia. Leo had bought it from an online wholesaler for $400, intending to replace it once the lottery check cleared. Ladies and gentlemen. Liam's voice boomed over the microphone from the stage. He was visibly intoxicated, swaying slightly in his rented tuxedo. Tonight we celebrate the triumph of the Miller bloodline. We celebrate my brother Leo, who finally traded in an old jalopy for a brand new sports car. Laughter and awkward murmurs rippled through the hall. And to show you all how real wealth operates, Liam shouted, raising his glass. Let's roll the tribute video of Leo and Bella's romance, prepared by our media team. The ballroom lights dimmed. The massive, high-definition projector screen lowered from the ceiling. Leo leaned back, taking a deep sip of his scotch, waiting for the montage of beach photos and romantic dinners to play. Instead, the screen flickered to life with a harsh, glaring white light. A crisp, high-definition security video filled the 30-foot display. It was time-stamped Tuesday, 11:42 p.m., filmed in the VIP lounge of a downtown underground casino. On screen, Bella was sitting comfortably on the lap of Marcus Rocco Kane, laughing as she ran her fingers through his hair. The audio, captured through crystal-clear directional microphones, boomed through the ballroom's surround sound speakers. "Don't worry, Rocco." Bella's voice purred with razor-sharp clarity. "The idiot. Doctor bought the whole story. He thinks he's the father. His family won some lottery money, and the second we get the marriage certificate signed on Monday, I'll clean out their shared accounts and wire the 400 grand directly to your bookie." Rocco's voice chuckled on the tape. "What about his ex-wife? Won't she sue? That little pushover?" Bella laughed mockingly. "They already divorced her and kicked her out with $0. The Millers are the dumbest pack of hillbillies I've ever met. They're practically handing us the keys to their bank." The ballroom went deathly, suffocatingly silent. The only sound in the entire hall was the ice cubes rattling against the glass in Leo's trembling hand. "Turn it off," Brenda shrieked, her voice cracking like dry wood. "Turn it off. Someone hacked the projector." Nobody moved. The AV technicians, who had been paid a very generous cash tip by Nate's assistants an hour prior, had conveniently locked the control booth from the inside. On screen, the video transitioned to a second document. It was an official, certified medical file from the State University Health Network bearing Leo Miller's legal name, social security number, and hospital employee ID. The bold red text across the summary page was visible to every single doctor and nurse in the room. Diagnosis: severe azoospermia/complete motility failure. Probability of natural conception: 0%. Below it was the paternity test result for the fetus carried by Annabella Cruz, completed via non-invasive prenatal blood analysis 48 hours ago. Paternity exclusion: Leo Miller 0%. Biological father: Marcus Kane 99.99%. A collective, horrified gasp exploded across the room. Leo's scotch glass shattered on the floor, dark amber liquid splashing across his trousers. He slowly turned his head to look at Bella, his face drained of every drop of human color, his eyes wide and bloodshot with absolute madness. "You," Leo rasped, his voice vibrating with a terrifying, primal rage. "The baby isn't mine." Bella's sweet, delicate demeanor vanished in an instant. Seeing that the game was completely blown wide open, she didn't cry. She didn't apologize. She simply sneered, snatched her designer handbag off the table, and backed toward the side exit. "Of course it isn't yours, you pathetic loser," Bella spat, her voice dripping with venom. "You couldn't get a woman pregnant if your life depended on it. You're a broke resident living off your mommy's fantasies. Did you really think an actual model would look twice at a cheap fraud like you? You bitch." Brenda roared, lunging across the table like a feral animal, knocking over a 3-tier cake that crashed into the floral centerpieces. "I'll kill you. You stole our wedding deposit." Before Brenda could reach her, the double oak doors at the back of the ballroom were thrown open. For uniformed police officers, flanked by 2 plainclothes detectives, marched into the room. "Annabella Cruz?" "Marcus Kane," the lead detective announced, pulling out a pair of steel handcuffs. "You are both under arrest for grand larceny, interstate wire fraud, and operating an unlicensed gambling extortion ring." As the officers tackled a cursing Bella near the emergency exit, a second team of men in dark business suits stepped into the ballroom. A tall, impeccably groomed man carrying a leather portfolio walked up to the stage. "Mr. Arthur Miller? Mr. Liam Miller?" the man asked, projecting his voice over the chaotic screams. Arthur, trembling so hard he could barely stand, raised a hand. "Yes, who are you?" "I am the chief legal counsel for the St. Regis Hospitality Group and Crestview Holdings," the attorney stated calmly. "I am here to inform you that your $5,000 deposit check for this ballroom has bounced due to insufficient funds." "Be bounced?" Liam stammered, clutching his head. "We have $3 million. You had a $700,000 advance against an unverified lottery ticket that was frozen this morning due to $480,000 in outstanding state tax liens against your defunct business," the lawyer replied with surgical precision. "Furthermore, the remaining balance of tonight's event, totaling $65,000, is due immediately. If it is not paid within 30 minutes, we will be pressing charges for felony defrauding of an innkeeper." Brenda collapsed onto the frosting-covered carpet, wailing like a banshee. Leo, do something. Call Ren. Tell Ren to give us the money from her father's trust." Leo sat frozen in his chair, staring at the shattered glass around his feet. "Call Ren." The words echoed in his hollow skull like a mocking chime. He reached into his pocket with shaking hands, pulled out his phone and opened his banking app. Balance: Negative $1,420. He looked up at the stage, where the screen was now displaying a local news broadcast that had aired 30 minutes prior. Breaking. Mystery winner claims $60 million mega jackpot in state lottery. Proceeds transferred to private trust under Vance Atelier. Leo's heart stopped. Vance Atelier. Ren Vance. The $60 million. It was never his parents' ticket. It was hers. The realization hit Leo like a physical blow to the chest, knocking the breath straight out of his lungs. The $3 million his parents thought they had won? It was a low-tier, promotional secondary prize that had been eaten alive by old tax debts, interest, fees, and predatory advance loans. The real jackpot, the $60 million mountain of gold, had been sitting in his kitchen ceiling the entire time, and he had drafted, signed, and celebrated an airtight legal waiver forfeiting every single penny of it, just so he could marry a scam artist carrying another man's child. Ren. Leo choked out, his vision swimming in black spots. She was the winner. What did you say? Brenda screamed from the floor, her hair matted with frosting and mascara running down her cheeks in black tracks. Ren had $60 million. We gave it away, Leo whispered, his voice cracking into an unhinged, hysterical sob. I signed the paper. We made her sign a waiver. She took all of it. She's worth $60 million. Liam let out a strangled wail, clutching his chest as if having a heart attack. 60 million. My McLaren. My house in the hills. Mom, tell me he's lying. The ballroom descended into absolute pandemonium. The guests, realizing that the Millers were not only broke, but drowning in police investigations and catastrophic debt, scrambled for the exits, knocking over chairs and abandoning the family like rats fleeing a sinking ship. Within 15 minutes, the grand ballroom was empty, save for the flashing red and blue police lights outside, the shattered cake, and 4 broken Millers, sitting in the ruins of their own greed. The rain poured down in heavy sheets over the gated entrance of the Grandview Horizon the following morning. I stood on my private terrace, wearing a cashmere robe, holding a steaming cup of Earl Grey tea. From 60 stories up, the city looked clean, sharp, and serene. My phone buzzed on the glass table. It was a call from the building's head of private security. Miss Vance, good morning, the head of security said with polished deference. We have a situation at the main security gate. A man identifying himself as Dr. Leo Miller, along with 3 individuals claiming to be his family, are attempting to breach the perimeter. Are they? I asked calmly, taking a slow sip of my tea. What do they want? The young man is screaming that you are his lawful wife and that there was a legal misunderstanding regarding marital assets. The older woman is currently throwing herself against the security barrier, demanding that you come down and write a check for their hotel debts. Have you notified the local precinct? 2 squad cars are already idling around the corner, ma'am. We just needed your confirmation to proceed with the formal trespass and restraining order. Enforcement. Give me the video feed first, Frank, I said. I tapped my tablet, pulling up the 4K surveillance cameras from the front gate. Leo was unrecognizable. His rented tuxedo was soaked through with muddy rainwater, his hair plastered to his forehead, his face pale and hollowed out with 24 hours of nonstop weeping. He was on his knees in the puddle outside the iron gates, clawing at the bars, shouting my name toward the penthouse towers. Beside him, Brenda was being physically restrained by 2 security officers as she tried to bite a guard's arm, her voice screeching through the audio feed like a rusted saw. Ren, you ungrateful little bitch. You were our daughter-in-law for 3 years. That 60 million belongs to the Miller family. You tricked my son. You knew Bella was a fake. You let us ruin ourselves. Arthur was sitting on the wet curb with his head in his hands, staring blankly at a stack of eviction notices and court summonses. Liam was in the back of a police cruiser, having been arrested on the spot when the leasing agency tracked down the rented McLaren and found thousands of dollars in unpaid damages. I pressed the intercom button on the wall. Frank. Yes, Miss Vance? Press full charges for criminal trespass, harassment, and intentional property damage, I said, my voice smooth, quiet, and completely devoid of warmth. And instruct our legal team to execute the judgment on Leo Miller's personal debts. I want his medical license reviewed by the Hospital Ethics Board for financial fraud by noon. Understood, Miss Vance. Clearing the gate now. Through the camera, I watched as 4 police officers stepped forward, forcing the weeping, screaming Leo onto his stomach in the muddy street, clicking the cold steel handcuffs around his wrists. Leo lifted his head one last time, his eyes searching the towering glass facade of the penthouse above, looking for a silhouette, a shadow, a single flicker of pity from the woman he had discarded for scraps. He found nothing, only the cold, gray reflection of the rain sliding down the glass. 3 months later. The summer sun bathed the private yacht harbor in brilliant, dazzling light. A 50-foot luxury catamaran, named the Sovereign, rocked gently against the pier. On the teak deck, Nate was firing up the outdoor grill, laughing with my mother as they uncorked a bottle of vintage Dom Perignon. I sat on the sun lounger, dressed in a flowing linen sundress and dark designer shades, reviewing the quarterly expansion blueprints for Vance Atelier. Our firm had just won the municipal design contract for the new waterfront cultural center, a $30 million civic project that had established my name at the very pinnacle of the state's architectural industry. Nate walked over, handing me a chilled flute of champagne. Latest update from the courthouse blotter, if you're interested, Nate smirked, leaning against the polished railing. I took a slow sip of the sparkling wine. Entertain me. Leo lost his surgical residency, Nate said, checking his phone. The hospital ethics board dropped him after the St. Regis fraud charges went public. He's currently working as a night shift medical transcriptionist in a rural clinic 4 counties away, living in a basement studio and paying off his legal debts on a 20-year wage garnishment plan. And the loving parents? I asked. Arthur's pension was seized to pay back the commercial real estate fraud settlements, Nate laughed. They had to sell their old family house and move into a subsidized trailer park on the outskirts of the county. Brenda tried to sue the state lottery commission for emotional distress, and the judge threw her out of court with a $5,000 frivolous litigation fine. And little brother Liam? Working the tire change bay at a discount auto shop. His McLaren dreams are officially retired. I looked out across the shimmering turquoise water, watching the white sails glide effortlessly toward the open ocean. There was no anger left in my chest. No bitterness. No lingering shadow of the 3 years I had spent shrinking myself to fit into a loveless, parasitic household. They had wanted a lottery ticket to save them from their own mediocrity. They had gotten their chance, and in their blind, ravenous greed they had used it to dig their own graves. Ren, Nate smiled, clinking his glass against mine with a clear musical ring. To freedom. I smiled, feeling the warm ocean breeze sweep across my face, carrying with it the scent of salt, sun and infinite possibilities. To freedom, I replied. And to knowing your worth.